I still remember that electric moment in the crowded cafe on a rainy evening. I was sitting in the corner, a steaming mug of coffee my only company, when he walked in. There was something unusual about him, a quiet intensity in his eyes, a hesitation in his steps, that made my heart skip a beat. I watched him as he ordered his coffee, his voice calm yet carrying an air of mystery. Fate had drawn us together, and I was determined from that moment on to unravel the layers of his soul. Before we dive into this thrilling story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Every move I made from that day forward was calculated. A silent promise to myself that I would capture his attention and, eventually, his heart. I began by studying him from afar, observing his habits, his interests, the books he read, the subtle gestures that spoke of deeper emotions. I learned that behind his guarded exterior was a man craving connection, someone who had seen heartbreak but still believed in the possibility of true love. I found him both vulnerable and fascinating, and I was ready to take on the challenge. As the days turned into weeks, our paths began to cross more frequently. At first, I made casual remarks about the weather, complimented his choice of music, or gently asked about his day. Every interaction was imbued with an undercurrent of intrigue, a carefully chosen word. A fleeting glance, a pause just long enough for the spark of curiosity to ignite. I knew that to win him over, I had to become indispensable, someone he couldn't imagine life without, but there was more to my plan than simple flirtation. I realized early on that respect and lasting love were rooted in deeper psychological layers. I started embedding subtle cues into our conversations, using carefully honed empathy to mirror his thoughts and feelings. I made him feel understood, as if I was privy to the secrets of his soul. My words were like a gentle melody, resonating with his inner desires, drawing him closer into my world. I recall one particular evening when I invited him to a small gathering at my apartment. The room was softly lit with candles, and the background music was just loud enough to create a cocoon of intimacy. Over a glass of wine, I shared a story from my past, a tale of overcoming heartbreak and emerging stronger. I saw his eyes soften with sympathy, and in that moment, I sensed that he was beginning to lower his guard. It was not simply that I was kind or compassionate, I was methodical in my approach. I allowed him to see the pieces of me that I wished him to love, my vulnerability, my resilience, my unwavering passion for life. Every story, every shared secret was carefully chosen to create a connection so deep that he would feel both the thrill of romance and the safety of being understood. I wanted him to believe that I was the missing piece in his life, the one person who could heal his old wounds and pave the way for a future of unwavering commitment. As I continued to navigate our growing relationship, I began to introduce subtle challenges, small tests of loyalty and commitment that, unbeknownst to him, were designed to solidify his attachment. I would sometimes withdraw my warmth for a few days, leaving him longing for my affection. When I returned, I was even more loving, ensuring that the contrast between absence and presence left an indelible mark on his heart. In those quiet moments of doubt, he would find himself reaching out, desperate for the reassurance that I was near, yet, behind every calculated gesture lay genuine emotion. I began to realize that my initial resolve to make him marry me was evolving into something more profound. It wasn't just about winning him over, it was about understanding him so deeply that we could forge a bond capable of weathering any storm. And so, I continued to weave my delicate tapestry of words, actions, and emotions, every thread a step toward the destiny I had envisioned, but nothing in life is ever without its challenges. Even as I set my intricate plan into motion, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with unexpected twists, moments when his inner doubts threatened to unravel everything I had so carefully constructed. It was during one such unexpected twist, one heart-wrenching evening when the truth of his past threatened to break him open, that I realized just how powerful our connection had become. I had sensed that he was retreating into himself, the fortress of his guarded heart rising up once more. Instead of being deterred, I leaned in closer, ready to offer him the empathy and understanding he needed. I listened intently as he recounted painful memories, never interrupting, always affirming his feelings with a tender nod or a soft word. It was in that vulnerable moment that I discovered the secret to winning his love, the willingness to be his safe harbor, a constant beacon of hope in a turbulent sea. The rain outside had given way to a quiet calm, mirroring the stillness that enveloped our conversation. I realized that my journey had just begun, and every step forward was a delicate balance between manipulation and genuine care. I had embarked on a mission to win his heart. But along the way, I found myself falling for him, too. The duality of my actions, both calculated and sincere, became the driving force behind every decision I made. That night, as I lay awake in the silence of my room, I pondered the path ahead. Would I succeed in binding him to me forever, or would the delicate threads of our connection unravel under the weight of past pain and future uncertainties? The clock ticked steadily, each second a reminder of the choices that lay before me. I knew that every word, every gesture had the potential to tip the scales, either drawing him closer or pushing him away. Thus began my journey, a journey of love, of risk, and of the fine line between influence and genuine emotion. I was determined to see it through, no matter how winding the road became. And so, with a heart full of hope and a mind meticulously planning every move, I stepped into the next chapter of our story, unaware of the storm that would soon test the very fabric of our bond. In the days that followed our intimate conversation, I began to refine my strategy. The art of allure, I learned, was not merely about physical attraction, it was about creating an irresistible aura of mystery and warmth. I immersed myself in understanding the intricacies of human desire, reading countless books on psychology and relationship dynamics. Every new insight was a tool, every lesson a stepping stone in my grand design. I recall spending long hours in my favorite corner of the local library, poring over texts that detailed the nuances of emotional connection and psychological influence. I wasn't seeking to lose myself in theory, but rather to harness these ideas and weave them into the fabric of my daily interactions with him. It was a delicate dance, a balancing act between authenticity and artifice, where every gesture and every word carried weight. At the same time, I remained acutely aware of his evolving behavior. He began to mirror my newfound intensity, his eyes lighting up with curiosity every time we met. I noticed subtle changes in his demeanor, an eagerness to share details of his own past. A slight relaxation in his guarded posture. It was as if he too had recognized the transformative energy in our encounters and was slowly allowing himself to be drawn in. One particularly significant moment came on a cool autumn afternoon, when the trees outside were painted in hues of gold and crimson. I had invited him on a leisurely walk through the park, using the natural beauty of the setting to create a backdrop of romance. I wasn't simply recounting tales of romance, I was creating a narrative, a vision of what our future could be. I wanted him to see that in the union of our hearts lay the promise of a life filled with meaning and joy. And so, with every carefully chosen word, I inched him closer to the idea of commitment, until the notion of marriage transformed from a distant dream into an inevitable destiny. There were times when the line between manipulation and genuine care blurred, moments when I wondered if my calculated tactics might someday backfire. But every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself of the deeper purpose behind my actions. I wasn't merely seeking to possess him, I was trying to offer him a sanctuary from a world that had hurt him. A chance to rebuild his sense of self in the warmth of a loving relationship. Even if my methods were unorthodox, the ultimate goal was to create a bond strong enough to weather any storm. As our journey continued, I became acutely aware of the power dynamics at play. I understood that true love was not about dominance, but about balance, a delicate interplay between influence and mutual respect. I made sure that every action, no matter how calculated, was tempered by genuine affection and care. I wanted him to feel that our relationship was a partnership of equals, even if I was the one subtly steering the course of our destiny. Yet, there was always a part of me that reveled in the challenge of it all, the thrill of knowing that each carefully orchestrated moment brought us one step closer to the future I had envisioned. I cherished the inner monologue that guided my every move, the calculated strategies that meshed seamlessly with the raw emotions that coursed through my veins. It was a heady mixture of art and science, of passion and precision, and I was determined to master it completely, but as the days turned into months, and our interactions deepened, the stakes grew higher. I knew that the final act of my grand design, the moment when he would willingly step into the commitment of marriage, was drawing near. And yet, a nagging fear lingered in the back of my mind. What if the very tactics I had employed to win him over would one day lead to a love built on illusion rather than truth? The thought both haunted and fueled me, a constant reminder that love, in all its complexity, was as unpredictable as it was beautiful. Late one winter evening, as snowflakes danced outside my window, I found myself alone with my thoughts. I reflected on every moment we had shared, the laughter, the tears, the unspoken promises that hung between us like delicate threads. The air in the room was thick with anticipation, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next twist in our tale. I began to pen my thoughts in a journal, an act that had become both a ritual and a catharsis. I wrote about the delicate interplay between light and shadow, between the overt acts of love and the subtle undercurrents of influence. In those pages, I explored the idea that every human connection was a labyrinth of emotions, a maze where joy and sorrow, hope and despair, danced in an intricate ballet. I acknowledged that my own heart was not immune to these complexities, that every calculated move was accompanied by genuine passion, every strategic silence by a longing for true connection. During this period of introspection, I also began to notice the ways in which he was changing. There were moments when his eyes glistened with unshed tears as he recounted memories of a past that still haunted him. I saw in him the scars of old wounds, the remnants of a time when trust had been a rare and fragile commodity. It was in these moments that I knew my role was not just to influence, but also to heal. I remember one evening in particular, a night when the sky was a tapestry of deep blues and twinkling stars, a night that felt almost surreal in its beauty. He and I were sitting on a park bench, the cool breeze carrying whispers of distant memories. He spoke softly of his past loves and losses, of dreams deferred and promises broken. I listened, my heart aching for him, and as the words flowed from his lips, I felt a profound connection deepen between us. In that moment, I realized that the foundation of any lasting relationship was built on the willingness to embrace both the light and the darkness within each other. I gently probed into his fears, his doubts, and his regrets, always careful to never push too hard. My approach was one of compassionate inquiry. I wanted him to feel that he was not alone, that I was there to share the burden of his past. And in turn, I began to reveal my own vulnerabilities, letting him see the cracks in my carefully constructed facade. I spoke of my own insecurities, my struggles to find balance in a world that often seemed indifferent to my dreams. These moments of mutual revelation were the glue that bound us, the raw honesty that transformed our connection from something superficial to something transcendent. Yet, even as I bared my soul to him, I never lost sight of the bigger picture. I had embarked on this journey with a clear goal in mind, and every step I took was part of a larger, carefully choreographed dance. I allowed him to see my softer side, the part of me that yearned for love and stability, but I also ensured that he recognized my inner strength and determination. I wanted him to know that behind every tear and every sigh was a woman who was resolute in her vision, a woman who would stop at nothing to secure the future we both deserved. In the quiet moments of that night, as we sat in silence under the vast expanse of stars, I could sense the tide beginning to turn. His eyes, once guarded and uncertain, now shone with the light of hope, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, he could find solace in the embrace of a love that was as transformative as it was unconditional. I knew that the labyrinth of emotions we had navigated together was far from over, that there were still corners of his heart yet unexplored, secrets waiting to be revealed. And so, with each passing day, I redoubled my efforts to draw him deeper into the intricate tapestry of our shared destiny. But even as I celebrated these small victories, a part of me remained vigilant. The art of manipulation, after all, was a double-edged sword, one that required constant recalibration. Constant awareness of the fine line between guidance and control. I had to ensure that every action, every carefully orchestrated moment, was not just a means to an end, but also an authentic expression of the deep love I felt. The challenge was to weave together the strands of calculated strategy and raw emotion into a bond so unbreakable that even the storms of life could not tear it asunder. It was a crisp spring morning when I realized that the time had come for the final phase of my plan. Our connection had deepened, and the once tentative flicker of attraction had grown into a blazing fire of passion and understanding. Yet, even in the midst of this newfound intimacy, I sensed a lingering hesitation within him, a shadow of doubt that threatened to unravel everything we had built together. I decided that it was time to confront these doubts head-on, to bring the unspoken fears to the surface, and dispel them with the warmth of unwavering love. I invited him over for dinner one evening, preparing a meal that was both comforting and elegant, a feast for the senses that mirrored the complexity of our relationship. As we sat down at my table, the soft glow of candlelight accentuating every detail, I knew that this dinner would mark a turning point. I began by recounting a story from my childhood, a tale of loss, of resilience, and ultimately, of triumph over adversity. I chose my words carefully, weaving in themes of renewal and the transformative power of love. I watched his expression closely as he listened, noticing how his eyes softened, how the lines of worry on his face eased into a look of contemplative acceptance. In that moment, I knew I had reached him. I had begun to dissolve the barriers that had kept him from fully embracing the possibility of a shared future. After dinner, as we moved to the comfortable intimacy of my living room, I gently broached the subject of commitment. I spoke of marriage not as an institution or a mere formality, but as a sacred union, a merging of two souls who were destined to support and uplift one another through every twist and turn that life could offer. My words, laced with sincerity and conviction, seemed to resonate with him. I sensed a shift, a subtle transformation in the way he regarded not just me, but the entire notion of partnership. Yet, it wasn't merely the beauty of my words that moved him, it was the painstaking care with which I had prepared for this moment. I had anticipated every hesitation, every flash of uncertainty, and had armed myself with empathy and reassurance. I knew that the final step was to let him believe that this was not just my vision, but his destiny as well. I encouraged him to share his own dreams and fears about the future, and for the first time, I saw him speak of a life built on trust and mutual devotion, a life where love was not a fleeting emotion but a lasting commitment. As the evening wore on, our conversation grew deeper, exploring the labyrinth of our hearts with a vulnerability that was both raw and beautiful. I made it clear that the love I offered was not one of coercion or manipulation, but one of gentle guidance, a path illuminated by shared values, mutual respect, and an unyielding belief in the transformative power of unity. I reminded him of every small moment we had shared, every challenge we had overcome together, weaving these memories into a tapestry that depicted not just a romance, but a promise of everlasting support. In the quiet aftermath of that conversation, as I watched him drift into a contemplative silence, I knew that the turning point had arrived. His eyes, once clouded by hesitation, now sparkled with a newfound resolve, a resolve that hinted at the possibility of embracing a future where love was the ultimate answer. I sensed that he was beginning to see me not just as a comforting presence, but as the partner he had been waiting for all along. In the weeks that followed, our relationship continued to evolve in ways that felt both inevitable and extraordinary. Every encounter was a carefully choreographed dance, a subtle interplay of presence and absence, warmth and distance, assurance and gentle challenge. I had set in motion a series of events that were designed to fortify the bond between us, each one leading inexorably toward the final act, marriage. I began to introduce the idea of our future in even more tangible ways. I casually mentioned dreams of a cozy home filled with laughter and shared secrets, of a partnership built on the pillars of trust and unwavering support. I crafted conversations that painted vivid pictures of domestic bliss, a quiet Sunday morning spent over coffee, lazy afternoons in a sunlit garden, and evenings where the world outside melted away in the comfort of our shared space. These were not empty fantasies, they were a reflection of the future I was determined to create, a future in which he played an indispensable role. At the same time, I ensured that our interactions remained layered with complexity. The setting was a serene lakeside resort, a place where nature and luxury coexisted in perfect harmony. It was here, amid the gentle lapping of water and the rustle of leaves in a soft breeze, that I intended to seal our fate. That evening, as twilight descended and painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, I led him to a secluded gazebo overlooking the lake. The space was transformed into a cocoon of soft lights and delicate floral arrangements, a stage set for a moment that would change both our lives forever. I had chosen this spot not only for its beauty, but also for its symbolism, a place where the boundaries between reality and dream blurred, where every whispered promise felt tangible. I began by recounting the journey we had traveled together, the milestones that had defined our relationship, the quiet moments of understanding, and the challenges that had only strengthened our bond. I spoke with a sincerity that belied the years of careful planning, my voice trembling with a mix of excitement and vulnerability. I reminded him of every laugh we had shared, every tear that had been wiped away by mutual compassion, every moment when we had silently acknowledged that our lives were now inextricably linked. Then came the moment that had been etched in my mind for so long. I took his hand, the one that had grown so familiar over countless shared experiences, and looked deeply into his eyes. "I have spent my life believing that love is both an art and a science," I said softly. "I have learned that every moment, every decision, every embrace shapes our destiny. And I believe that we were meant to write our own story, a story where every chapter, no matter how challenging, leads us to a place of profound connection and commitment." In that charged silence, I reached into the small box I had carried with me, a token of my unwavering belief in our future. Opening it slowly, I revealed a ring that sparkled with promise, a symbol of the life I wanted us to share. "Will you marry me?" I asked, my voice steady yet brimming with all the emotion of a lifetime of hidden dreams. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. I watched as his eyes widened, the glimmer of tears mingling with astonishment and deep-seated recognition. It was as though every moment of our shared past converged into that single heartbeat, a heartbeat that declared, unequivocally, that our paths were forever intertwined. He took a deep breath, the weight of the moment palpable in the quiet of the lakeside dusk. "Yes," he whispered at last, his voice a blend of wonder and relief. "Yes, I will marry you." In that instant, the carefully woven tapestry of our journey transformed into a shared destiny. The months of calculated effort, the delicate interplay of emotions, and the quiet battles fought within the recesses of our hearts all culminated in that single word, a word that promised a future where love was both the journey and the destination. The days following the proposal were filled with a heady mix of celebration and introspection. Friends and family gathered to toast our union, and every congratulatory word seemed to validate the extraordinary journey that had led us to this point. Yet, amid the laughter and joy, I found moments of quiet reflection, pondering the delicate balance between influence and authenticity that had defined our path. I often recalled the early days, the calculated strategies, the silent observations, and the subtle manipulations that had paved the way for our union. There were moments when I questioned whether the love we shared was truly organic or a masterpiece of carefully orchestrated moves. But as I watched him embrace our new life with an openness that belied the hardships of the past, I realized that what mattered most was the transformation that had occurred in both of us. We had journeyed through a labyrinth of pain and longing, emerging with hearts that had learned to trust, to forgive, and ultimately, to love unconditionally. Our marriage was not without its challenges. Like any great work of art, it required continuous nurturing, a delicate dance of vulnerability and strength. We encountered disagreements, moments of doubt, and the inevitable scars left by old wounds. But every time we faced a storm, I remembered the promise of that lakeside evening, the promise of unwavering commitment, of shared dreams, and of a future built on trust. Each trial only served to reaffirm our dedication to one another, and slowly, the tapestry of our life together grew richer and more vibrant. In the quiet hours of the night, as I lay awake listening to the steady rhythm of his breath beside me, I often revisited the memories of our journey. I saw the glimmer of hope in his eyes during our first meeting, the cautious trust that blossomed over shared secrets, and the triumphant moment of his heartfelt yes. I realized that our love was not simply the product of a meticulously planned strategy, but a living, evolving testament to the power of connection, a connection that had been forged through both artful influence and genuine empathy. I began to document our story in a journal, determined that the lessons we had learned along the way would not be lost to time. I wrote about the delicate interplay between strategy and sincerity, about the ways in which vulnerability could be both a tool and a gift, and about the beauty of a love that grew stronger with every shared tear and laugh. In these pages, I recorded not only the steps that had led me to win his heart, but also the quiet moments of introspection that had reshaped my own understanding of love and respect. As the years passed, our bond only deepened. We learned to navigate the complexities of life with a sense of humor, with compassion, and with the unwavering belief that our love was capable of overcoming any obstacle. I often recalled the inner dialogue that had accompanied every calculated move, the constant balancing act between desire and caution. And I realized that the true magic lay not in the manipulation itself, but in the transformative power of empathy, the beauty of shared dreams, and the courage to build a life together even when the odds seemed stacked against us. Even now, as I look back on the winding path that led me to the moment he vowed to be mine forever, I am filled with a sense of wonder. Our story is not one of simple manipulation or shallow seduction. It is a tapestry woven from the threads of passion, resilience, and an unyielding belief in the transformative power of love. I learned that sometimes, the most profound acts of influence come not from force or coercion, but from the gentle art of truly understanding another's soul.